I think the questions you have about the Cavs are going to be real until they actually do it. They are the one team, I think, that if we see them in the conference finals, if you just were to fast forward and see them there, you'd be like, man, how'd they get there? You won't just accept it the way that you can see it with Detroit, with Boston, with New York. Cleveland has the talent, but I think they have more to prove than anybody, and games like this highlight that.
You think you understand? The Cleveland Cavaliers. For years, their identity was tied to a single name, LeBron James. When he wore the wine and gold, the franchise mattered. When he left, everything seemed to crumble. Cleveland's story always felt predictable. Greatness when the king was there and chaos when he wasn't. But that story doesn't fully explain what's happening now. Because the Cavaliers you're watching today are not the same team the NBA grew used to over the last 2 decades. Something about this franchise has changed. The mindset is different. The structure is different. And for the first time in a very long time, Cleveland is building an identity that doesn't depend on a single superstar carrying the entire city on his shoulders. Just a season ago, the Cavaliers looked unstoppable. They tore through the NBA with authority, racking up 64 wins and launching the season with a perfect 15-0 start. Night after night, they overwhelmed opponents with elite defense, balanced scoring, and a roster full of rising talent. Awards started piling up as well. The head coach walked away with Coach of the Year honors, while Evan Mobley established himself as one of the most dominant defenders in basketball by winning Defensive Player of the Year. From the outside, everything looked perfect. Cleveland had youth, talent, and momentum. It felt like the start of something special, maybe even the beginning of the next championship era in the city. And then the playoffs arrived. Suddenly, the same old story returned. For months, the Cavaliers had looked like one of the best teams in basketball. But once the postseason pressure arrived, the magic disappeared. Cleveland once again fell short in the second round, leaving fans frustrated and analysts questioning whether this talented core was truly built for championship basketball. The doubts started to spread quickly. Maybe this team was just another regular season powerhouse that couldn't survive when the spotlight became too bright. Maybe the roster looked good on paper, but lacked the experience needed to win deep playoff battles. So the Cavaliers made a decision that shocked the entire league. Instead of staying patient with their young stars, Cleveland chose to take a massive gamble. They traded away one of the most beloved players in the city, their homegrown point guard Darius Garland. In exchange, they brought in a player many people believed was already past his prime, former MVP James Harden at first. The reaction was brutal. Fans questioned the move. Analysts criticized it. Around the league, people wondered if Cleveland had just made a desperate decision that could damage the franchise for years. But inside the Cavaliers organization, the move represented something very different. It was the start of a new identity. Right now, Cleveland sits at 39-24. Injuries have disrupted the lineup, key players have missed time, and the roster has gone through constant adjustments. Yet despite all of that chaos, the Cavaliers somehow feel even more dangerous than the team that dominated the league a year earlier. Understand why? You have to look back at Cleveland's complicated history. For nearly 20 years, the Cavaliers never truly developed their own basketball identity. They had LeBron. Everything revolved around him. The offense flowed through him. The defense relied on him. The city believed in him. When he carried the team to victories, Cleveland celebrated. When he left, the franchise collapsed almost instantly. The most painful example came in 2010 after LeBron decided to take his talents to Miami, the Cavaliers plummeted to a miserable 19-63 record, the worst in the Eastern Conference. The drop-off was shocking, but also revealing. Without their superstar, the team simply didn't know how to function. 8 years later, history repeated itself. When LeBron departed again in 2018 to join the Los Angeles Lakers, Cleveland once again crashed down to the exact same record, 1963. It was almost eerie how predictable the pattern had become. When the king left, the kingdom collapsed. Ironically, even winning with LeBron created a different kind of problem. The 2016 championship, the greatest moment in franchise history, raised expectations to an impossible level. That legendary comeback against the 73-win Golden State Warriors is still one of the most unforgettable finals battles ever played. Down 3-1 in the series, Cleveland refused to quit. The iconic chase-down block by LeBron James, the clutch three-pointer by Kyrie Irving, and the emotional celebration that followed turned the city into the center of the basketball world. That IT should have been the beginning of a dynasty. Instead, it created an impossible standard. From that moment on, Cleveland lived in a strange reality. Either they had LeBron and competed for championships, or they were rebuilding and hoping to find the next player who could carry the franchise the same way he did. The problem was simple. There was no next LeBron. For years, the Cavaliers searched through drafts, trades, and roster changes, hoping to discover another generational superstar. But the answer never appeared. Then, in 2022, the franchise made a move that quietly changed everything. Cleveland traded for Donovan Mitchell. Mitchell was already an established star, a three-time All-Star with a reputation for explosive scoring and big playoff performances. But what made the move special wasn't just his talent. It was his commitment. Mitchell didn't treat Cleveland like a temporary stop on his career journey. He embraced the opportunity to build something meaningful there. Around him, the Cavaliers assembled one of the most intriguing young cores in the league. Evan Mobley developed into one of the most versatile defenders in basketball. Jared Allen dominated the paint with elite rim protection and rebounding. And Darius Garland provided creativity and playmaking in the backcourt. For the first time in years, Cleveland had a real foundation. But success in the regular season didn't translate to the playoffs. That in 2024, the Cavaliers exited in the second round. In 2025, they improved dramatically, winning 64 games and sending 3 players to the All-Star game. Everything pointed toward a championship breakthrough. Then the postseason arrived and everything unraveled again. The Indiana Pacers completely dismantled Cleveland in the second round. The series ended in just 5 games, and one moment in particular became unforgettable for all the wrong reasons. In a must-win game at home, the Cavaliers found themselves trailing by 41 points at halftime. 40-1. It was humiliating. It was shocking. And it forced the entire organization to confront an uncomfortable truth. Something was missing. The talent was there. The system worked during the regular season. But when the playoffs slowed down and defenses tightened, Cleveland didn't have a player capable of taking control when everything else stopped working. That realization eventually led to a coaching change. When the Cavaliers hired Kenny Atkinson as head coach in the summer of 2024, the move didn't generate much excitement around the league. Atkinson had previously built a competitive culture with the Brooklyn Nets before their superstar era began, but he wasn't seen as a revolutionary hire. However, his impact on Cleveland was immediate. Under the previous coaching system, the Cavaliers' offense ranked just 17th in the league. The roster had talent, but the strategy failed to maximize it. Players like Mobley were being used too cautiously, limiting their ability to fully develop. Atkinson changed everything, and he rebuilt the offense around pace, ball movement, and spacing. More importantly, he empowered his players to play with confidence. Mobley was encouraged to shoot three-pointers regularly instead of hesitating. He was told to attack the rim, push the ball in transition, and embrace the role of a future superstar. The transformation was dramatic. His scoring increased, his three-point attempts nearly doubled, and his confidence skyrocketed. Suddenly, the young big man looked like the unicorn talent Cleveland believed he could become. The rest of the team thrived as well. The Cavaliers jumped from 17th to 1st in offensive rating across the entire NBA. Jared Allen became a dangerous pick-and-roll threat instead of just a rim protector. The offense flowed smoothly, spacing improved, and the team's chemistry grew stronger. The results were historic. Cleveland opened the 2024-25 season with 15 consecutive victories, joining a very small group of teams in NBA history to achieve such a dominant start. They eventually finished with 64 wins and looked like one of the most complete teams in basketball. But again, when the playoffs arrived, the flaws were exposed. The Pacers eliminated them in 5 games, proving that Cleveland still lacked a player capable of controlling high-pressure moments when the offense stalled. The front office understood what had to happen next. They needed experience. They needed someone who had lived through the chaos of playoff basketball and knew how to handle it. That realization set the stage for the boldest decision in years. The 2025-26 season began with enormous expectations. Cleveland believed this would finally be the year their system, talent, and chemistry came together. Instead, the season started falling apart to be why late January. The Cavaliers were sitting at 24-20, far from the dominant pace they had established the previous year. Injuries began piling up as well. Mobley suffered a calf strain that forced him to miss several weeks, while Garland battled lingering toe problems that kept him in and out of the lineup. The offense began to stagnate. The front office faced a critical decision. They could stay patient and hope the roster eventually recovered, or they could make a massive move that might completely change the trajectory of the franchise. They chose the second option that on February 3, 2026, just days before the trade deadline, Cleveland stunned the entire basketball world. They traded Darius Garland to the Los Angeles Clippers, in return. They acquired James Harden. The reaction across the league was immediate and brutal. Critics pointed to Harden's age and his long list of team changes. From the Oklahoma City Thunder to the Houston Rockets, the Brooklyn Nets, and the Philadelphia 76ers to TO many fans, it looked like Cleveland had sacrificed its future for a fading superstar. But the Cavaliers believed something different. They believed Harden still had something left to prove. And almost immediately, he showed in his first game with Cleveland against the Sacramento Kings. Harden scored 23 points, including an explosive 17-point fourth quarter. Days later, against the Denver Nuggets and MVP center Nikola Jokic, the Cavaliers found themselves trailing late in the game. But this time, they didn't collapse. With just seconds remaining, Harden knocked down a deep step-back three to tie the game. Moments later, Donovan Mitchell sealed the victory with clutch free throws. Cleveland won 119-117 since the trade. The Cavaliers have looked energized. Their offense has exploded, their confidence has returned, and the chemistry between Harden and Mitchell continues to grow with every game. And that partnership might be the most dangerous part of all. Mitchell is currently having the best season of his career, averaging nearly 29 points per game and leading the league in three-point shooting. His scoring ability combined with Harden's playmaking has created one of the most difficult backcourts in the entire NBA to defend. That if defenses focus on Mitchell, Harden takes control. If they double Harden, Mitchell attacks, but there's no easy solution. Meanwhile, players like Jared Allen are thriving in Harden's pick-and-roll system, while Mobley continues working his way back toward full strength. And perhaps the most terrifying part for the rest of the league is this: Cleveland still hasn't fully reached its potential. Mitchell and Harden have played only a handful of games together. Mobley has barely shared minutes with the new backcourt. The rotations are still evolving. If the Cavaliers already look this dangerous now, imagine what they might become once everything finally clicks. For years, Cleveland lived in the shadow of its past. But now, for the first time since the LeBron era ended, the Cavaliers may finally be building something entirely their own, and the rest of the NBA might not be ready for what's coming.